Hey, Amby. Sorry, I didn't expect that. It's bright here, so that's good, I guess. Look, I haven't spoken to Ham yet this morning. If he, he's a man, he's like a cannonball. He keeps rolling. So if he does a live with somewhere, just hop off, go to him and listen to him. I'm sure he'll come on here at some point. I just don't know when. So stay tuned to your Twitter. As soon as if he announces he's going to do a call on Twitter, just hop off here. Go listen. And then I'm sure he'll be on here too. So I just don't know at what time but I do want to show you, if I have it here, I want to show, it may not download. That's the problem. Whenever I do this, they don't download. But I'll show it. If it does download. And one of these files says it won't download. So let me see if I lost everybody. No, I didn't. Amby's still there. All right. So this is my little chart this morning on Finger. I'm sorry. I know that's got to sound terrific. Let's go with the red lines first. That's just a typical trading trend in the stock since the beginning of the year. I was positive on the stock somewhere in January, February. I forget exactly when. But what you see here is higher lows, and higher highs. And I would argue that it has broken out of its upper trend of this channel. Others might say you're crazy, but that's what I think. I think it's broken out. So that what was happening for many months is essentially, as soon as it hits the top red line, it would trade back down to the bottom red line. And it did it over and over and over again. You could have made a lot of money buying the lows, selling the highs. Of course, that's more obvious in retrospect maybe than it is in forward spect. So I think now it's broken out. So that red line, the second one, the top one, will become support, in my opinion. So that's bravo for Finger, and that's bravo for you. I think you've survived the destruction that Roth Capital did to the stock with their offering. And I think the company wisely took the money, by the way. The company clearly has implemented their strategy, and it's showing up in the price and in the fundamentals. So those are the red lines. The yellow line, I got it kind of, I don't know, like a horseshoe there, I guess, or got a leg on it. That yellow leg in the middle, I'm just trying to call your attention to the gap. That's the Roth Capital gap, the Moez Kassim gap in the price of the stock. That gap is going to be filled, and that's what that yellow line is. And I've been saying that for months, of course. It's not too far away now. That's the $2 level. And in fact, the stock traded at $2 pre-market. So it's pretty much filled that gap. What does it do from here? I think you have to count on backing and filling to the breakout point. Now, let me be clear. You've got two breakouts that have gone on. There's the 200-day moving average. It's finally punctured through that. Look, all right, let's go to the green lines. Look at the green circles, the green tick marks. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then here at the yellow line, that's 6. This is the 7th attempt to get through the 200-day moving average. The 7th attempt in a basically 9 months. And twice with the circles, it did pop through, but then they got it back down. I personally think this time they are going to try to bring it back under the 200-day moving average, but I think they will be surprised that there's support right at that top red line. So I don't think they're going to be that successful this time. And my opinion is the 200-day moving average is about to become support. It's about to become support. They will try to puncture it to the downside. It won't work, in my opinion. And then you're going to see the $2 level become support, in my opinion. And then you're going to see this stock, to me, well, it's 20-cent moves. It's 20-cent moves, as it turns out. You'll see that I didn't tick them, but you'll see it go to 220. It'll pull back to 2 a little bit. It'll go to 240, pull back to 220, go to 240, pull back to 220. But these might be very light resistance. But I think the 260, 280, that could be a little more significant. So there might be a trade for 10% of your position, and then you buy it back. But I think once it gets to 280, once there's backing and going back and forth, maybe it's just one day of it, maybe it's days of it. I then think it'll get up into the trading range of 280 being support, 320 or 340 providing some resistance. And that's where I think Finger's headed. That's my double call for so long. Finger is showing tremendous strength in terms of volume. There may be something else going on beyond buy-ins. It may be more than just Fidelity. I don't know, but it looks like somebody's accumulating stock. So there could be a chance for a big move beyond everything I'm saying here. But those would be out of the left field. Those would be out of expectations. So this is how I see Finger. My cough isn't really painful. It's just deep. It is deep. But I don't know if it's really painful, but I need to go. You're right. Of course, you're right. I need to go get it checked out. Wall Street Wolfie, yes, Finger is trending because of ham. I actually think some of this buying maybe unrelated to him. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him at all, but it's pretty strong buying. But there's no question, in my mind anyway, that finger motion would be, I don't know, 50-cent stock, 25-cent stock without him. Ham has worked his butt off on it, and for a long time. Finger is all over social media. I wonder if they've hired a marketing team. It's possible they hired a marketing team. Finger's breaking out, guys. I mean, I've shown that whoever that guy Neville yesterday at the end, I don't agree with his assessment of me at all, but since $1.04, I've been saying Finger's looking good. Looking good. Hey, Chris. Hey, John. Traveling John. Trade has only traded 8,900 shares. Sorry, let me look. I didn't get, oh, shoot. I signed in before I went live, but I've got to sign in again. Oh, no, I don't. No, I don't. Here I am. Nixie is down 2 cents to $1.65. Railtown is flat at 28 cents. A bargain of all bargains. Finger is up 7 cents at $1.89. GME is up 45 cents at $27.50. And I was thinking about that last night, GME. When Lion recommends GME, he sees trades. So if you want to trade it, there's different purposes people have in their thinking and in their recommendations. And he saw something. I don't know if he saw 50-cent upside move in GME, but he maybe he sees it as bigger than that. But he's at least saw that, and that's a nice trade. If you own 5,000 shares of it, up 50 cents, that's a nice trade. It's just not my bailiwick, really. What was the other stock? Oh, G-Bucks. 308, 9,000 shares. You're right. It's a very small volume today on G-Bucks. Yeah, I miss my porch. I don't know the answer to that, Corey. Hey, Narad. Hey, Daddy-O. Your hair looks great. Yeah, I just watched it. So it looks like I got it cut. All right, good morning, everybody. Benjamin, Jason, John, Corey, John, X-Pulse, Michael Olonsky, Augustin, Susan Michaels, CC Ryder, ESK, Eddie Eagle, David, Henry Perez, Ambi, and CC Ryder is a woman, not a man. But she faced the burning stand with, she fills the burning sand with water. Ooh. Now, here, I like this. Now, I don't know who Chris Foray is, so he could be sent here by the other side, the dark side, to get you to limit your upside in finger motion by selling calls. But I happen to agree with Chris Foray. I don't know what the premium is on the calls, but if I didn't have the money, but had I purchased FNGR at, let's say, $1.05, and it's trading here, which is where I wanted to buy it. That's why I come up with that number. I hate people that say, oh, I coulda, I woulda. Well, anyway, welcome. You know, you may not believe me, but that's where it was. The money I was expecting just never arrived. I wouldn't have bought much, you know. I probably would have used calls, the $1 calls. I probably would have bought 10 of them, you know, nothing big. But anyway, the same idea, though, applies here. Now that the stock is approaching 2 on a rally today, for example, while you still have the time premium of this weekend, I don't know the strike prices, but I'd consider selling the $2.25 calls, $2.50 calls in 3 weeks. What's my risk? My risk is that it explodes to the upside and I miss out. That's a risk. My other risk is that I get caught up in some sort of dance. In other words, the stock goes to 275 and I go, shoot, I shouldn't have sold it. I'll buy those back. I'll sell some more. And that's what you're trained to do if you're worried about it running away. But I would keep it simple. I would sell calls. And if it gets taken away, I'd let it settle out and then just reestablish my position. So let me use an example. Let's say I didn't have this money, but if I had purchased 1,000 shares at a little over $1, and I sold, let's use the $2 calls. I think that strike price is there. If I now sold the $2 calls for maybe 25 cents, I don't know where it's trading, which expire in 3 Fridays, that means I have to get through 2 weeks. I think that's right. I don't know. It's either 2 or 3 weeks because I don't know if you count today on that. You can look it up. It's the concept I'm trying to get across. So $2 might be a little close because I think the stock looks strong. On the other hand, I think there's going to be backing and filling. And what happens from today to the expiry date is the time premium declines. And I would be capturing that time premium. So let's say it magically works and I bought 1,000 shares, I sell 10 calls at $2.50 at 25 cents. So it's $250. And I paid on 1,000 shares, I paid, I guess $1,000, $1,050. Well, I bring in $250, and now my cost basis is $750 on my position. But if the stock goes up and down, 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 but the premium's always going down, in 3 weeks, it expires worthless. And I played the other side of options trading. 95% of call options expire worthless. So if you get on the selling call side, covered calls, and you've got to learn to be indifferent to getting the exact high, and maybe you'll miss out on a move. And as another example, let's say I get through next week, but the following week the stock goes to 225 and somebody exercises my calls. I'm like, shoot, darn it, I lost my stock. But I brought in 25 cents. So it's not like I lost anything in that trade. And once they exercise it, I have the cash. I can try to reestablish my position. I might have to do it with options instead of stock. I might only be able to buy 500 shares instead of the original 1,000. But whatever, I play with it with the money I have, and I mean, if you sold 1,000 shares, oh God, if you sold 1,000 shares essentially for 225, you could buy 1,000 shares back maybe at 210, and uh, see how the stock trades. If it trades to 250, you sell the threes, the short. So that's why I would do it. With the stock that's in motion, I would just do the short-term calls. But I like Chris's idea. I really do. I think now might be the time to do it. It might be better to do it when the stock gets up into the, I don't know, let's say the $3 range. And, you try to pick a position where the stock's going to go sideways to flat for a while. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's a brilliant idea. All right. Thank you, Chris. I love your idea. I think I think selling covered calls is a great idea. The only caution I give is I notice people coming on here when the shorts get in trouble. And wow, G-Bucks is up to 310. Nixie's, of course, the only one. Yesterday, if you recall, I made my guess. I said Nixie first. I think I said Nixie, Railtown, G-Bucks, Finger, I think. Well, sure enough, Railtown's flat, Nixie's down, and Finger is looking great. I should have put that one first. Anyway, you're never going to be right. Never going to be right on the first day. G-Bucks is up to 310. That's nice. Finger's still 186. Rail is 20, it's flat. And Nixie's flat too. I guess it's got that going for it. They call the wind Mariah. Mariah. Can you explain how the dynamics of a short squeeze work when your broker is only allowing sells and no buys? I guess it would depend on who your broker is. If your broker is the broker with the largest short position in the stock, or it's one of the world's largest brokerage firms, I think you're right. That would be advantageous to the short sellers. However, you're just on the retail side of that brokerage firm. On the prime brokerage side of the firm, I'm just going to guess, there might be a similar instruction. We won't take any more sales. You can only buy back shares. And what you're describing is a sign of a firm under a little bit of stress with their position. And they're going to try to control it on both sides. They don't want any more exposure. See, that's the thing. I don't know how far the real people at these brokerage firms, some people at the brokerage firms, my opinion, it's the men at the very top, but it might be lower in the production chain. But some people understand the whole thing exactly. But the majority of Wall Street, I don't think even knows what's going on. And so once it gets to the point that a risk manager or a compliance officer is telling her sales force or telling her clients, we do not want you to buy any more shares. Because, Maria, when I don't know who your firm is, let's say it's Fidelity, because that's one that's in trouble, and that's one that apparently is not allowing purchases other than by phone. When they act on your behalf so you can purchase shares, they're just putting a IOU in your account. They're putting a book entry in your account. It's not unusual. They do it everywhere. They do it all day long. They do it constantly. But they never ask for delivery, as far as we know. If they get turned down on delivery, they never follow up. Wall Street's modus operandi, and it's been ever, to quote Meghan Markle, as ever, for at least since 2008, but I would say it goes back. I'm not as convinced that short selling, naked short selling, was as huge a weight on Wall Street until Bill Clinton came in, and probably in his second term, when he started really doing the work at the behest of Rubin and the rest of his bankster handlers. But Ham sees it differently. Ham thinks the shorting has been a major problem all along. It's always been there. But I think it was a much smaller item. I think where it really metastasized is when Barack Obama broke up the banks and allowed Goldman Sachs, the paradigms of free market and liberalism and free speech and never again guys that now run the government. And again is happening as ever right now across the globe, and we're backing it up. It's just funny. It's just funny. When I see those crying babies in the old black and white movies at the museum here or in Spielberg's movie, just breaks your heart to see these little children who had their childhood robbed from them. The 10 years, the 15 years of innocence gone. When I look at these little brown faces that I guess the northern countries don't see because they're brown or they're Arab, might be Muslim, might be Christian, might be Jewish. Palestinians are all three of those. Sometimes they're atheist. I see those little babies crying and trying to be playing in the rubble and losing their father, oh God, it's the same. I have the same reaction. Why is their childhood stolen from them? Never again, as ever. Never again, as ever. Never again. We are the victims. as ever. We are the supremacists. God, it makes my brain hurt. Anyway, every trade you do where you buy stock, they're setting up an obligation that they can't handle. There's no real shares. Get that out of your head. Get that out of your head. There are certificates up at Depository Trust that sit there like a blob, kind of like a block of gold in the time of the Medici, sitting at a bank. And when someone wanted to go to Amsterdam to buy a modern master's painting of their mother-in-law as a gift to their wife, they get on their horse, Dennis Moore, galloping through the night, Dennis Moore, Dennis, and they go up to Holland, but they couldn't bring the gold with them. So they bring a chit with all the writing that by the carrier here in the Medici Bank of Florence guarantees whatever 100,000 florin to the bearer, Mrs. Caruso, and she and her husband go up to Amsterdam to buy a painting. They turn in that piece of paper at the bank, and the bank says, Medici, bravo, bravo, bravo. They probably didn't say bravo up in Amsterdam. And they advance the money. They take a check and they buy their painting, and they Dennis Moore back to Italy. And the gold may or may not transfer. The bank in Amsterdam may have offsetting accounts down in Florence. So by wire and by courier, end of the day, end of the week, turns out that they don't have to sell 100,000 florin worth of, send 100,000 worth of florin in gold or whatever the hell currency. They just have to send 1,000 because they reconcile the trades. But the gold sits like a blob in the bank. It never moves unless it's necessary to settle the intra-bank, to settle the reserve ratio, to settle a imbalance between the banks. I don't have the vocabulary, I guess. But this is what's happening in the brokerage firms. That big blob of stock is sitting up at the DTCC for Fidelity. And then there's one sitting up there for Ameritrade. And there's one sitting up there for Morgan Stanley. And there's one sitting up there for A.G. Edwards. But when you buy, they're not giving you those shares. They're not taking the gold out of the vault. They're giving you a chit. Just like the Medici Bank gave to Mrs. Caruso to go to Amsterdam to buy a painting. It's just a chit. The gold stays where it is. So if it's Fidelity, when you buy shares of Finger Motion at Fidelity, that big block of Finger stock they have is sitting up there at the DTCC. They don't give it to you. Everything you buy is fictitious. Everything you buy is electronic. Everything you buy is credit. Everything you buy is an IOU. Everything you buy is an obligation to you on the part of Fidelity to honor that purchase as if they had given you real shares. None of the shares are ever real. It's always an entry. It's always a book entry. Always. Always. Now, what Medici Bank does over time down in Florence, and that everybody's going up to Amsterdam to get one of those painters up there. I can't remember any of the names. And anyway, to do portraits. And so it becomes a huge trade. And what Medici Bank notices with this big blob of gold they have in Florence, and then they do the reconciliations at any one time, the most they've ever had to pay out or settle up is 10% of their gold in house. So they start lending the gold out. They start writing more chits than is represented by the gold by lending it out. Mr. Pizza Ball, you want to go buy a family heirloom in Amsterdam. You have a house here in Florence. We'll lend you $100,000. Sign here. You pay it back over 10 years, 4%. They just created 100,000 more, whatever, florin, lira, whatever they have in Amsterdam, guilders, than they actually have in the vault represented by gold. Now they're 2-to-1. There's twice as many chits outstanding to go buy portraits up in Amsterdam. One is real, the other's a loan. But they're going to buy those portraitures up in Amsterdam. Well, Medici Bank noticed they could do this 10 times. So that 100,000 florin worth of gold becomes $1 million worth of chits. It becomes, let's say, 10 paintings of men and women with bulbous noses and pouring milk and nice accoutrement. So that 100,000 in gold becomes $1 million in paintings because there's $1 million worth of chits out there. Now, the bank, whatever it's called up in Amsterdam, Bank of Amsterdam, Bank of Holland, they do the same thing in reverse. But the two banks, they don't move their gold. They don't move the gold. They move a little if they have to keep that 10-to-1. But if it doesn't quite match, they don't get overly concerned. That's where they keep a book. They just keep a ledger. They trust each other, which, by the way, is what banks lost when the financial crisis hit in 2008. Banks stopped trusting each other. So when you buy finger motion at Fidelity, Fidelity, in essence, they're not telling you this, but they are extending to you a loan of stock that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. No more than those chits. The gold backing up those chits didn't exist. But the law of large numbers, what we would call algorithms now, behavior of people can be analyzed and predicted. There can be spikes in the short run, but over time, it can be predicted. 10 to 1. 10 to 1 became the fractional reserve banking. That's what they settled on. But today, particularly after COVID, there are no reserves. Now there are banks have these other reserves that they're required to keep, and apparently we're stronger than we were. But I don't think there's any 10 to 1 anymore. I bet it's 100 to 1 or worse. But anyway, let's leave commercial banking aside. So what happens with Fidelity when they get uncomfortable, and it might be happening that there's pressure from MMTLP of all places on Fidelity's back office. What the hell? You told your clients that they own 60 million shares of MMTLP and you only have 6 million at the DTTC? That might be going on. And so all of a sudden, eyeballs that aren't those top manipulating guys, and in Fidelity's case, it's a woman. Maybe she knows, maybe she doesn't. But it's down in the level of compliance and risk and lawyers all of a sudden that were kind of looking the other way, but now it's on their desk. They might be tightening up on Finger and saying, look, we're in trouble with MMTLP. We're in trouble with MMAT. We're in trouble with Torchlight for that matter. And there may be other stocks too. But we cannot afford to get in further trouble with Finger Motion. So they stop lending shares. That's what they're doing. They're not lending shares to you, is what I mean. They've closed their willingness to automatically lend you shares of any stock you want to buy. In the case of Finger, they've just decided to stop doing it. So it probably means there's stress from compliance, believe it or not, or from a risk standpoint. The problem doesn't go away. They can only sort of whittle it down over time. And then this is where the volume may be coming in. Whispers go around, phone calls go around, or pillow talk. Hey, Bob, today we just put Fidelity on the do not buy list. Finger Motion on the do not buy list at Fidelity. Wow, okay, all right. Next morning, in early at work. Hey, Vinny, I heard this. Hey, Justin, I heard this. Hey, Joe, I heard this. And then they start buying to test it. I don't think it's advantageous to the short sellers is what I'm saying. I think it's a sign of real trouble for the short sellers that Fidelity is not allowing shares to be bought. That's my opinion. Now on the prime brokerage side, I would guess that they're not letting the short sellers sell with abandon at their prime broker, Fidelity's prime broker. They could be to help them get out of the situation. But Maria, what I'm trying to tell you, Wall Street does not manipulate. How do I say this? I believe there's a group of men that over time have become allies and work with each other and they kind of nod and wink and understand that they help each other out. And they break the law. They tell themselves they're not. It's a little bit like if you've ever been, and I hope you never are, but you've ever been in a court case in a city away from you, a corporate court case, and it goes on for years. You start recognizing that the attorneys that you've hired and the attorneys the other side has hired and the judge, they all go to lunch together. They all have drinks together. They're on opposite sides in other cases. If you're down there 3-4 years, you start saying, hey, these guys are running a business. The judge gets a piece of the settlements. The lawyers get their jobs. They refer each other. I'm the bloody feast. But I don't think they ever get together and write a contract amongst each other. I just think over time they fight in court and they maybe fight the judge, but as they get a little older and over time, they realize, hey, we're all making money from this. Let's not blow it up. Let's just work together. The companies come and go. We're always here. This is our town's industry. This is our courthouse's industry. That's the feedstock that makes the judge's house big, makes the lawyer's car fast, and makes the other lawyer's young family pregnant. So that's what I'm saying, and people get all upset with me. But I think guys at these Wall Street firms, they start working together. But it's a very small group. It's a very small group. And the rest of Wall Street, Maria, is not going to do something to help the shorts win or lose. They're not going to manipulate. I would say 95% of the people on Wall Street are honest. 98%. So my guess is if somebody at Fidelity is saying, we're going to take away the buy button from retail. In other words, our loan book, we're not going to automatically loan into existence unlimited amounts of shares of Finger Motion anymore. We're not doing that. Because if you buy, somebody is selling it to you and they know those shares don't exist. But I think on the prime brokerage side, they're going to say you can't be shorting. That's what I think. The shorts will start lying. They'll start lying. And that's where you can argue there's some collusion, because the shorts will lie to their representatives at Fidelity. Oh, we're going to bring the money in. We have shares out of there. And then it's up to the person listening to assume, what's the risk of that? Is he telling the truth? Can I buy another day? Because they don't want to blow up this kind of commission. So you could argue that they're kind of in on it there, but they're just operating within a little gray zone. If they've been told by the compliance to shut it down, they will. Last time Finger Motion got into a squeeze like this, what the other aspect of it being a local business, like the courthouse, the criminals hired Frank Benedetto, hired Lou, hired COSM, bribed COSM with a financing. And whether these guys knew what they were doing or not, I'll leave that to history. But they punctured the squeeze, and that kind of collusion will go on. They'll be trying to think of ways to keep finger motion from going up. They'll be thinking about it. My guess is, Maria, Moez Kassam at Anson Funds will call Roth Capital and say, we'll give your client finger motion 25 million for 50 million shares of stock. I'm making it up. 25 million shares of stock. And that might pop it. That might be what they think they can pop it. My guess is that's not going to fly. We don't know. We don't know. My contention is finger motion needs to raise money. Everybody I talk to says, they have already raised money. They don't, who knows? But I think this time the risk Anson Funds runs is that finger motion has already done a joint venture deal. It's a concept in my mind. I haven't heard it from finger motion at all. A good friend of mine and I have discussed it many times, but I've never talked about it with finger. I've talked about it live before, but the most obvious thing would be SAIC does a joint venture with finger to keep that exclusive contract alive and growing, and to bridge the initial heavy lift of capital necessary to get that production line up and running. But once it's up and running, the natural rhythm of production, delivery, payment will be self-perpetuating. And I think the Anson Funds aren't prepared for that this time. So the shorts might be surprised this time in finger. But I think the key concept you have to understand, not you personally, all of us, what's in our accounts is never real. It's never physical. It's never accurate. They just have a big blob of street name stock at the DTCC, just like that big blob of gold down in Florence. And they tweak it a bit. If there's an imbalance, they might have to send some over to Morgan Stanley. They might, or they just leave it alone and just have book entries. But they have sophisticated analysis, I'm sure, computers. They measure the activity, and they know that they're not going to need those physical shares as long as every time you, Maria, sell your finger motion, you get cash. You're not going to complain. They never have to tap into those physical shares. They're clearly running into something here. It might be that the SEC is going to start enforcing Reg Show. Maybe Atkins. Gary Gensler was indifferent to the over-the-counter markets, including NASDAQ. He just could care less. All he wanted to do was shake hands with all the power people so he could continue his climb upward and make sure he gets board seats and maybe even the Treasury secretary. It's just a disgusting human being. Arrogance. I've never seen, he thought he's walking down a hall in Congress and he thinks everyone's watching him. It's a bloody government hall that is barely lit. There's nobody there. He walks down like he's the prince of whatever, prince of Wall Street, prince of SEC. Anyway, maybe Atkins cares about the over-the-counter markets, and maybe Atkins is going to start enforcing the rules that are already in place, and maybe Fidelity's saying we don't want to have any further leverage out there because it's leverage. And they're feeling pressure probably in a lot of MMAT. Sorry about that. I guess that's my signal to stop talking about that subject. But anyway, Maria, let me just make sure I answered your question. Can you explain the dynamics of short squeeze when your broker is only allowing sells and no buys? All right, the other thing I wanted to say on that, ignoring your own broker, they're just part of the market. So as finger motion goes up, let's be specific to finger motion. I think whether or not it's coordinated like it was with Lou, Frank, and Cosmo this time, whether or not it's coordinated, there'll be other shorts that come and just day trade. They sell stock that doesn't exist, they don't own, they don't intend to deliver, and they do it as in size at other firms, other broker dealers. So they'll sell, and if the stock keeps going up, not only does Fidelity keep, in my example, Fidelity's continuing to put pressure and buy back and reduce their position. Those guys who were short, new shorts, just a day trade, they start covering. And as soon as it pops up again, it flashes across computer screens. And these guys have just done a line of Coke in the John, or they just had a beer down at Tony and Joe's, or they just got off the golf course, or they're at home with their neighbor's wife. And the stock pops up, they see it on the screen, up, sell 10,000. Because they know everything that pops up, if they and the rest of them, remember, I think they may not have started out together, but just like that courtroom, they start recognizing, hey, we're all feeding off the same beast. Let's not be too hard on each other. There'll be another wildebeest along. There'll be another mastodon that we can collectively shoot down. So they short. And it always works. Eventually, they come back down. It works with GME, AMC. It works with HOLO. And anyway, all these stocks that squeeze, eventually, if you keep selling, they come back down. But on the way up, it can be really exciting because these day traders, they don't really have any scratch. Unless they're sitting at home in their underwear, they might have to scratch. But they're as soon as they are losing money, they cover. And that adds fuel to go to the upside without Fidelity being able to cover their original problem. Fidelity's problem is getting worse and worse. So I know that's a long answer, but I don't think it's advantageous at all to the shorts. I think it's a sign of real trouble for the shorts. Eventually, you're right. Eventually it's up and it rolls over. And the question is, it's like last time, if I had to do it all over, as soon as Lou and Frank Benedetto was getting on the spaces and COSM was the thing, and then the genius guy's in, I think he was paid off. Jeremy's got some shitty Playboy stock. I probably would have said, you know what, to you, I would have said to you guys, if I had known all, this dynamic, yeah, fingers at $9. Why don't we take a little off the table and go buy some silver, And that's going to be the question now. Does finger double? Does it triple? Does it break out and you got to squeeze? And right, for the time being, I'm gonna lean on the side of, let's not get too greedy, but be ever vigilant that, if this stock breaks out, it could be a nice ride. So anyway, I'll stop there. I don't know if I answered the question, but Ham will be on a conference call soon. Well, everybody go over to him. After he's done, he can come on here. I mean, he likes to do that himself. I think it allows him to talk without questions and without shills. I don't know. So go over to him. Go to Twitter and can't remember, Ham short sellers, at Ham short sellers or something. Just look up Finger, you'll see it. Brokerages are corrupt, protecting the shorts. I don't know. It's so hard to explain it, and I don't know what side of it you're on, and it's very similar to something happening over the last 60 years geopolitically. It's the same human motivation. Push for more, claim it, go get some more, claim it, go get some more. And that's what's happened on Wall Street as assets have been ever concentrated into a handful of families of funds and a handful of banks. Under Obama, they broke out the banks. There is no compliance. There's no, and the regulators want the jobs at the brokerage firm, at the law firms. Congress, the same. There's no enforcement anymore. So in that sense, you're right. But I think it's much more that Wall Street, no one's watching. It's all run by computers. I was talking to somebody this morning, and he said to me, "You like the miners? Yeah, mining stocks." I said, "Yeah, I think that's where people are going to get wealthy." And just to cut to the chase, said, "Why don't I just buy an ETF?" That's the thing. Wall Street's just become ETFs. Brokers don't follow stocks. There's no local office anymore. When you go into your broker, they're going to give you a presentation. You need this many bonds. Buy this bond ETF. You've got a bigger account and you need some exposure to emerging markets. Let's buy the Tiger funds. And now you should be in the MAGA 7, and we recommend the whatever ETF. And that's on purpose. There's fewer lawyers required, for fewer oversight. It's just all managed money. So I don't know that brokerages are corrupt. Your president Bill Clinton, I voted for the son of a bitch twice. I saw him speak at Georgetown with a lovely French teacher, and we were so close that, you know, I would say within 2 steps I could have grabbed his he was standing on a stage, so I could have grabbed his legs. But he gave an amazing speech. It was Bill, Hillary, Al Gore, Tipper they were all there celebrating it at Georgetown, and I thought he was great. Anyway, I can't get access to the article I wanted to show you. So I don't agree with you on that. I do think that the way Wall Street is structured now, that most of the business on Wall Street is from fees, management fees. And then on the prime brokerage side, the business comes from commission. And I do agree with you that Wall Street is addicted to that commission, that money, that river of money. That river of money, and so they look the other way. They make a lot of allowances, but I think the lying and the corruption comes offshore. It comes from the funds, and it comes from the attorneys. Obviously, somebody on the Wall Street knows what's going on, but I don't think it's the preponderance of Wall Street. I don't agree with you. The regulators do nothing. Gary Gensler, that's where corruption starts. I think Ann Wagner's corrupt. And I'm not going to be able to find this. I'm on the verge of throwing my phone against the wall. I don't know why it's so difficult to pull up something I was just looking at this morning. I'll just turn the phone off and back on. I think brokerage firms facilitate shorting. And the other aspect of income on Wall Street, but you're not listening, because I guess it's just too big of a concept to understand. Banks, commercial banks, the ones that give you mortgages, they lend that money into existence, and they do it off of a very small reserve requirement. So you buy your home with borrowed money that the bank makes fees on. Your neighbor borrows money. It's created. The money is created into existence. And then the houses, the builders have a relationship. And if they know their bankers, and it becomes a self-perpetual. That's why there's new suburbs and old slums. Well, it's the same now on Wall Street. They lend stock into existence that doesn't exist. It is a profit center. It makes fees. And that's what goes on. If you think that's corruption, maybe, but I think it's just that they've pushed the boundaries for so long and they've gotten away with it for so long that it is standard operating procedure now. Doesn't make it right, but I'm not sure it makes it corrupt. Somebody's corrupt. Somebody's corrupt. But I don't think it's the whole brokerage firm. Darn it. Okay, I finally get it. There's a movie called The Great Taking by David Rogers Webb. According to David Rogers Webb, the global financial system, the whole system, has increasingly engaged in a practice where all securities, stocks, finger motion, bonds, and other financial assets, silver, gold, are used as collateral by the world's largest banks. Do you remember what I'm telling you about Medici Bank? They used other people's gold deposits as collateral for loans they made. So this practice is called, quote unquote, collateral management. It's carried out without the explicit knowledge of investors and funds. The financial securities are pooled in centralized depositories like the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation and like Euroclear. Through these entities, securities are rehypothecated, mimeographed, rehypothecate is just lent out multiple times. The securities are rehypothecated multiple times, creating extensive collateral chains and these chains contribute to the rapid expansion of the derivatives market. All ATM offerings are derivatives. Now he goes all the way back to say this was established in the 70s. It was minor back then. He's trying to protect Bill Clinton. It was legally formalized in 1994. 1994. They revised Article 8 of the Uniform Commercial Code. And what this did is it transferred ownership of the securities to the central depository. So the ownership of those securities go to DTCC, not you. And it is a change in the Uniform Commercial Code in the United States in 1994. Bill Clinton. These legal frameworks effectively transferred ownership of securities to central depositories, DTCC, stripping investors of direct property rights and putting their assets at risk in a market crisis. Now, he goes back to the paperwork crisis of 1968 because he's a gentleman and he's not going to pick on any one side or whatever. And he explains that a little bit. And that's certainly where it started. But give these guys an inch, they want the whole settlement. So this revision in 1994 of the UCC Article 8 introduced the concept of, quote unquote, securities entitlements, which replaced direct ownership of securities with a contractual claim, effectively allowing the DTCC to utilize your securities at will. Rehypothecation, the practice of reusing pledged collateral to secure multiple obligations. We'll lend out to Silvermine so he can buy the brand new house on the corner on Elm Street. We'll lend out to Maria to buy the house next door on Elm Street. We'll lend out to William to buy the house in the middle of the block. We'll do 10 of the houses with the same original deposit, and we'll lend them into existence. We'll go short houses. But it's okay, we're making fees. And as long as the government policy makes those properties go up, the people we lent the money to are going to be able to pay us back eventually. They're doing that with securities. Rehypothecation, the practice of reusing pledged collateral to secure multiple obligations, lies at the heart of this scheme. When banks engage in derivatives trading, they use the securities at the DTCC as collateral without the investor's knowledge. But it came under the pen of Bill Clinton. So is it corrupt? Or is it the third way? Even segregated accounts, quote unquote, segregated accounts, which are supposedly to be separate from pooled securities, are ultimately included in the same collateral pool. The U.S. Federal Reserve acknowledged this in legal documents responding to EU regulators, explicitly stating that investors, quote, do not have rights attaching to particular securities in the pool, unquote. The U.S. Federal Reserve acknowledged in legal documents that investors do not have rights attaching to particular securities in the pool. Does that sound like corruption? Instead, they hold only a pro rata claim. And that's where it all gets messy. Well, we've got the shares at the DTCC. We're just giving you a chit. But we got them. You got a claim up there. So where's the corruption? It's not that they try to match the number of shares they have to the number they sell. It's just what they're comfortably lending out that doesn't exist. That's all it is. The legal and regulatory structures introduced under Bill Clinton's change in the UCC framework, I pointed out Bill Clinton, have effectively turned securities ownership into a form of indirect claim. Is that corruption? Bill Clinton signed it into law. Is it corrupt? It's an indirect claim. You don't own anything. You have an indirect claim. Rather than having outright ownership, investors are granted a contractual claim that allows financial institutions to prioritize financial institutions' own interests when they use these assets. If a major financial crisis were to occur, the first rights to the underlying securities would go to the secured creditors. The secured creditors are the derivative contracts, the holders of the derivative contracts, Anson Funds, JP Morgan, Roth Capital. The first rights to the underlying securities, do you hear this? The first rights to the underlying securities go to the secured creditors involved in the derivatives contracts, not to investors themselves. How's Bill Clinton? Oh, he's a great president. Great president. Wish he were back. This legal arrangement has allowed the derivatives market grow to a staggering 1.5 quadrillion in US dollars, 1.5 quadrillion. I think that's 15,000 trillions. This explosive growth has been driven by the unregulated and limited use of clients' securities, your securities, as collateral. Does it sound corrupt? Bill Clinton put it into law. Certain men that control the financial interests of Goldman Sachs, of JP Morgan, of BlackRock, Blackstone, Citadel, the Stevie Cohen Fund, Bank of America, there's one woman, Fidelity. They benefit from this. They know about it. The lawyers know about it. Bill Clinton signed it into law. At the same time, Bill Clinton said with the Graham-Bliley-Leach Act, we don't have to regulate derivatives. We don't have to regulate derivatives. Secretary Rubin told him, Wall Street's not going to take those risks to put itself under. Do you think Hillary ever said anything that was worth $500,000 a speech? Or was it a payback to Bill Clinton? You might have an argument there on corruption. So anyway, this arrangement has allowed the derivatives market to grow to a staggering 1.5 quadrillion US dollars. This explosive growth has been driven by the unregulated and limited use of client securities as collateral. As more institutions become dependent on rehypothecated collateral, stock loan desks, F3 button, the financial system has become increasingly fragile. Well, not if you control the government and you control the Democratic Party, so you start spending Social Security on 20 million new people, you start spending on DEI, you start spending on wars, you start funneling, slushing money through the Ukraine, you start bombing anybody with brown skin, you start just spend. And the Republicans joined in. Then the system's not fragile because it just keeps growing and growing. But at some point, it can't get bigger. It's going to collapse. The failure of a single major institution, too big to fail? The failure of a single major institution could potentially trigger a cascade of defaults reverberating throughout the entire world. If such defaults were to take place, the financial institutions have the legal authority to seize all securities used as collateral. Does that sound correct? If widespread defaults threaten the financial system, your institution has the legal authority to seize your securities which have been used as collateral. It's law. Does it sound corrupt? The total amount of securities held at the DTCC, about 90 trillion, and at Euroclear, about 40 trillion. Between them is 130 trillion with a T, 130 trillion with a T. They back up 1.5 quadrillion. It's about 11 to 1. In derivatives. Legally. This legal authority he goes on to explain, where national laws conflict inside of the European Union, the courts in Europe have to ignore national laws and go along with this. So what needs to be done? First, the Bill Clinton revision of the UCC Article 8 code must be repealed. Oh, he's such a great president. And his wife, she's so talented. This legal framework stripped investors of direct property rights by introducing the concept of quote-unquote securities entitlements. Repealing this revision is essential to restoring genuine ownership of securities. Secondly, legislation must be introduced to prohibit financial institutions from using client-owned securities as collateral without your consent. Further, you have to be paid if you give your consent, which automatically recognizes your property rights. Third, the scale of the derivatives market must be reduced drastically. The derivatives complex poses a significant threat to financial stability. They're proposing strategies for a solvent wind down. Solvent green is human. Solvent green is human beings. Last, transparency must be improved. In conclusion, the unrestricted use of securities as collateral is a systemic threat to financial stability, property rights, and the rule of law. Do you think it's a discrimination issue? Do you think it's a feminist issue? Do you think it's a racism issue? Is it a rich poor issue? It's probably all of that, but no one cares. The current financial framework prioritizes the interests of the too big to fail over individual investors, effectively placing all securities at risk in the event of a market downturn. Without changes, we're going to have a crisis, and investors will lose their assets on an unprecedented scale. All right, I'll leave it there. I think you like to be with you. You tried to reach me a few times. You didn't pick up the phone. I think you like to be with you. I don't. I mean, we all are stuck with ourselves, Benjamin. We don't have much choice. The one constant in my life is myself. I've always been with me. Do I like it? I don't know. I've adapted to it. You tried to reach me a few times. You didn't pick up the phone. Well, I guess if I called with my speaker phone, I didn't pick up the phone. Thank you for your comment. Do you prefer physical silver, or do you like holding SLV or PSLV? Numero uno, and uh, and I would buy what John calls constitutional silver, what I call junk silver. Basically, dimes, quarters, and 50-cent pieces, which were in circulation, still are. They're still legal tender, but they've been hoarded, and there's silver content. I forget the breakdown. It runs from roughly 90% silver down to 45%, I think. Anyway, the purchase you make is based on the silver content, not the coins themselves. John had an interesting idea, and I don't have time for it, but some of the coins might be valuable, so maybe you check those out. But a bag of those coins will cost you anywhere from $2,000 to much more if you get a heavier bag. I would have those bags delivered to your house. I wouldn't tell anybody. Where I would buy those is APMEX, APMEX, APMEX.com. It's a big, I think, reliable retailer of silver, gold, precious metal product. I believe they're located either in Tennessee or maybe Oklahoma. Can't remember. Doesn't matter. But I have found their service excellent and probably better than any alternative out there. AppMex.com. The reason I focus on the bags of silver, they're small, you can hide them, you can put them in the back of your trunk, you can drive away with them. If society breaks down, which make no mistake about it, society's going to change, but there can be crisis periods ahead of you. As a young man, you probably don't even remember a period that came close to crisis in the U.S. financially. And anything that ever happened, 2008, 2000, was over with before the news went back to whether or not Kim Kardashian had a new boyfriend or not. This time there could be some real crises. And those could include that you have to leave town. If you show up to your ATM, there may be no money there. I personally believe that our currency is going to continue to be used in transactions, but it's possible, some people think, that your local gas station won't accept the Federal Reserve notes that you have. Any coins, by the way, coins are issued, any coins. I'm not talking about silver or gold. I'm just talking about any of the crap you have in your pocket or you throw on your dresser. Those coins are printed by the mint, the U.S. Treasury. They're printed by they don't really have any value melted down. Maybe nickels do. Nickels might. But the those coins may almost certainly people will accept, but the Federal Reserve note may become worthless. May be totally worthless. I don't know. I don't want to get that I'm predicting that right now. But my point is, if you show up to the gas station on the corner and there's a long line of cars and there's young men and women protesting and they've got boom boxes and they're banging on the hoods, they're asking for money and they're saying, hey, hey, ho, whatever, Trump's got to go, and you're not feeling safe, you just want your gasoline. If you have a 10 ounce bar of silver, it might be worth, conceptually, it could be worth $1,000, and you buy, let's say, $100 worth of gasoline. They're not going to make change for that $1,000. They may not take it, but if they do take it, they're not going to give you change. So these coins, I don't open the bag though. Don't open the bag. John says you should open it up and see if any are valuable. I'll leave that all to you. But in an emergency, you can break the glass and open it. So a silver quarter, a silver 50-cent piece, two of them might buy your gasoline and or whatever the number is, and you don't need change, if you understand what I'm saying. So that's one reason I think you should own some of them. The other reason is, in my experience, and I really personally went through it over the last 2 decades, I guess once or twice. I wish I had purchased Bitcoin instead of this, but I saw it firsthand. In a panic, the constitutional coins or the junk silver disappear. You can't buy it anymore. And the premiums become huge. So where you might be paying $2 an ounce premium right now, I don't know. I haven't looked. It makes my heart sick to look because I want to buy silver and I don't have the money. In times of stress, that might go to $20 an ounce premium. It might go to $50 an ounce premium. It doesn't matter because they're unobtainable. You just can't buy them anywhere. So that's the first thing I'd buy. If you have a lot of money, 20 grand, I'd buy a monster box of Silver Eagles from the US Mint. The person I would buy that from is Mike Maloney. You can buy it at Apex, but I would buy it from Mike Maloney at goldsilver.com. I'm just making sure that's his website, Gold Silver. There's another one very similar. Yeah. I think it's Gold Silver. I can't find it while I'm talking to you, but it's Gold Silver, Mike Maloney. I'll keep looking as I'm talking just to make sure I'm not misleading you. Why can't things be right at your tip when you need them? He'll say, and he's got another, yeah, it's goldsilver.com, goldsilver.com. He has a methodology too where you can store your precious metals with him. He's created a vault where it's allocated, but the material never leaves the vault. So there's a tiny extra step, but I trust him. I think he's honest. I followed him for 20 years. So anyway, why would I buy the Walking Liberty, the U.S. Mint silver coins? Because I think in any crisis, everybody in the United States will recognize those coins. They're 999. They're not 49 like the Canadian silver or the Austrian or the Australian. But here in the United States, everybody recognizes it. So that's what I would do. And I'd go through him for that. You can buy bars, you can buy other coins. I like the Silver Doctor, SD Bullion. I like them very much. They sometimes have specials. They have their own coins. I'm liking this guy, Andy Schleckman, when I listened to him, but I never did business with Miles Franklin. But I like Miles Franklin. There's a group out there that I think is called BitGold. I'll have to get back to you on it, where you can actually get a credit card. You can put your money in gold or silver, and you have a debit card against that account. There's some aspects I like about that, because you can you don't have to carry your material. But I don't like the fact that you can spend your gold and silver that easily. Anyway, you start with the physical, and I don't know how much to tell you, but and a monster box might be too much. You don't need that much to change your life. 100 ounces. You can buy the sleeves of 100 ounces of silver. When you buy physical silver, my recommendation, do not open up the box or the bag. If you want to look at it, buy some extra, so the extra you can open up. But the rest, keep it, because if there's a spike, if there's a panic, and you want to get out of it, let's say silver goes to 1-for-1 with gold. Maybe it gets more expensive to gold over a period of 4 or 5 days. You're going to want to sell it. If you open it up, when you send it in, you'll get a price over the phone, or you'll get a sales price through your email, and they'll say overnight it to us within 24 hours or within 48 hours. You can do that. But if you've broken the seal, they have to count it. And I don't think they'll honor the price. You don't know, they might, but I wouldn't. I'm not sure I would. If there's a spike and they agreed to buy it from you at $10,000 an ounce, and while they're counting it, it goes down to $4,000 an ounce, do you think they're going to honor that first price? I'm not so sure. So I wouldn't open it up. I'd make it easy, so you send it to them, they can scan it and wire your money to you. So I prefer physical silver 100%, and I just tried to describe it to you. SLV, let me read 3 people's views on SLV to you. It won't take long. It won't take long. Let's start with Mike Maloney. Of course, when you buy physical silver, the question is, where do you store it? And I would say, unless it's a lot, just do it at home. Just don't talk about it. Don't tell anybody. I mean, nobody. All right, let me just tell you. Yeah, it's the Canadian is 4 9s, and the Australian is 4 9s. But you don't have to get all fancy like that. Let me put my eyes on. There we go. Okay. Chris, this is about SLV. Exchange traded funds, SLV. ETFs, this is talking about SLV or GLD. These are an easy way to buy price exposure to precious metals. This is Mike Maloney. I say price exposure because you were not buying the precious metals. You were buying shares, like a stock, in a trust that owns precious metals. This gives you exposure to the price. That's SLV, gives you exposure to the price of those metals. The most popular ETFs are iShares Silver Trust, SLV, and Spider Gold Trust, GLD. But if you read the prospectus, the documents state that the funds are designed for the purpose of tracking the price of the underlying metal. They may not, in fact, do so. Under certain market conditions, they may diverge from the price of the underlying metal. That's enough for me to decide to stay clear from them. They have expenses. And if the trust for some reason failed, maybe, you become an unsecured creditor and you have to file a claim. Doesn't sound very fun. All right, I'll read to you Dr. Stephen Lieb. There's other sources out there, but this is what's right here in front of me. And I think he talks, he doesn't focus on SLV. So, but he does focus on the gold ETFs. He likes them. He actually likes them. Investing in an ETF that tracks gold bullion lets you participate in the gold rise without the hassles of buying and storing the physical gold. And he likes GLD, and he likes the iShares Gold Trust, which would imply he likes the Silver Trust, but he focuses on gold. I consider any of these ETFs perfectly acceptable as an alternative to owning the physical. But you should be aware of one distinction, that distinction being the one between allocated and non-allocated gold. One advantage to owning physical gold is that it's allocated to you. But that's not true when you invest in an ETF. Ownership of the gold that the ETF holds is divided among all stakeholders in the fund. And if anything goes wrong, there's no assurance you can reclaim your gold. I'll leave it at that. I don't like SLV. If you're a good trader, if you're doing it for trading, I like SLV, but I wouldn't do it. PSLV, I love. The Sprott Physical Silver Trust, I love. I trust Eric Sprott. I've never met him. I've met Rick Rule, who worked for him at the time I met him. But what Eric has, Mr. Sprott has designed is an investment, a trust, an ETF, yes, but they buy physical silver, physical gold in the other trusts. He has a series of them. And they store them. It's allocated, and he lists the bars on his website, the numbers of the bars. You still have that distinction where you share the ownership, but he's as transparent as he can be. They own the physical material. If you're in an ETF, ETFs are just a slush fund for Wall Street to hypothecate and rehypothecate and do it over and over and over again. That's not happening in PSLV. Now, it doesn't get away from the problem of where is it stored? You don't know. Is it safe? Maybe. It's also in your brokerage account. And, there's no perfect answer here. But anyway, that's it. I can't buy finger what's going on. Silver mine card, set up a Schwab account. The anchor finger, yeah, the anti-finger bots are out, yeah. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're being sarcastic or not. Well, it's probably a safe bet. If you have the question whether I'm being sarcastic or not, it's probably a safe bet that I am being. I don't know. How could Bill Clinton ever regulate? Because he's too cool for school. Robert Rubin, that was not Robert Rubin, Steve Rubin. Anyway, the Treasury Secretary told him that Wall Street could do it, and he believed it. It's crap. Yeah, that was Christopher Conte. That is from the documentary, which I've never seen. I took it from David Morgan summary, but that is The Great Taking by David Rogers Webb. You're absolutely right. Premiums are not too bad on junk silver. Yeah, and in fact, John Quason will point out that you can go to your local dealer, and there's one in Palm Springs that you can deal with long distance. So there's a lot of alternatives. That's the one I was trying to remember, Ben. I really like SD Bullion. They're very good guys. All right, Ben Palmer points this out. Just keep in mind when you buy online, your name is in a database. I buy from a local coin shop. I think that makes sense. My opinion is that of everyone out there, he has to follow the same rules. But if there is leeway, Mike Maloney is going to lean toward your privacy, not the other way around. So if that's just my opinion of Mr. Maloney. I can't buy finger. What's going on? All right. I don't know why you're a doofus and you can't buy finger, but let me sign back in and let's see what's going on. just be a second Northwest. Fingers at $1.90. The bid is 190. The ask is 191. It's been as high as 197 today. The low is 180. This year it's been as low as 103 and as high as 396. The volume is already 613,000 shares. That's what's going on with Finger today. I bought a few goldbacks. Some states have made them legal tender. Yeah, that's coming. That's coming. I don't know if that's going to be good for everybody if that comes, but it is coming. You're seeing Texas, I think North Dakota, I think Oklahoma. Some states are starting to do that. Shift Gold will buy your gold and silver back when you want to sell it. I've never used his service, but all of these will. AppMex, they all buy it back. They have to count it though if you've opened your but they all buy back. I'd say Shift probably runs I've never used him, so but I would guess that his service is clean and honest, like the other big ones. But I'd stick with the ones that have been around a while, which is unfortunate because I'd love to get into it, but it's a tough business. There was one dealership. He was a great guy. I used to do most of what I would buy through him, but I think he answered every call. I'm trying to remember the name of it. And he went broke. He went bust in the sharp downturn. So I don't think he cheated anybody, but I think he went out, he lost money. Just bought some on Weibo. Look, I don't know if Northwest is a real person, but apparently you're not allowed to buy Finger Motion on Fidelity, but if you call in by phone, you can buy it. Probably, according to him, what's going on is the SEC has informed brokerage firms they intend to tighten up. That's Korean Yoon. That's that's good. That's exactly what happens at the ones I mentioned to you. AppMex, who was excellent at it, gold, silver. They ask you, you call in, you say, and if you're calling back to the same place you bought it from, they already know. And you say, I want to sell 100 ounces of silver. Well, what is it? Well, it's 100 ounces of the, 2020 silver dollar. Okay. Is it in good condition? Yes. All right. We're willing to pay you X amount after fees. This is what you get. Okay. I'll accept that. All right. Check your email. This is what AppMex does. Check your email. You're going to receive a shipping label. Print that out. Take your silver down to I forget which one they use. I think they use UPS, but it might be the post office. Anyway, it's been a while. But take it down there. That's the label. Pack it. Make sure you secure it. That's the label. Put it on both boxes. It's paid for already. And keep the receipt. Track it. And that's what they do. And they give you a guaranteed price. But Korean Yoon, the question is, and I don't know. You can disagree with me. But the question is, would Shift Gold, if gold spiked to $100,000 an ounce, and you called up and you said, I've got whatever, 25 ounces, and he says, all right, I'll pay you $2.5 million. Have it sent overnight, wire instructions, I'll pay you $2.5 million. But if you have a bunch of loose coins because you didn't keep it in the container he sent you, so we can just scan it, and he's got to recount it, and everybody's calling in and selling at the same time, his back office is backed up, they've got stacks and stacks and stacks to call, and so he goes through the ones that he can quickly scan, and he spends all his available cash, and then he's still got stacks of stuff he's got to count. And meantime, the price has gone from the spike of 100,000 an ounce to 40,000 an ounce. And it's maybe gone outside of a 48-hour window because he just couldn't get to it. Do you think he's going to pay you 100,000 at that point? I don't know. I don't know. My guess is the safest way to make sure you're going to get paid what they quote you on the phone, don't open the box. Send back the box as you first received it. And they'll know what's in there. They don't have to count it. But it's, anyway. So. Do you have any thoughts or guidance on the market order type MIT? I wouldn't do that. I never used that. That's a new, I mean, that's technically when you have a good till canceled order. No, that's, if you put in a GTC order with a specific price, they only have to fill it if the bid, I mean, if you're selling. If the bid goes through your price, they got to fill your entire position. I wouldn't do what you're calling market if touched. Gretchen, in a short squeeze, if the buying comes in, it is forced buying. It is indifferent to price. If it's short covering, it's indifferent to price. In economics, it has a high inelasticity. The demand is inelastic. They're going to pay whatever the hell they have to pay. So I wouldn't do market if touched. The risk you have of market if touched is the guys running the computer will know that. So let's say you're trying to sell 10,000 shares at 125. They'll give you 100. They'll give you 100 shares at 125. They'll drive the stock down to 60, give you the rest down there, and then let it run back up. I wouldn't give the criminals that kind of control over my exit. If it is truly a short buy-in, if it's a mandatory buy-in, they'll fill your entire order. They just want the stock. If it's just a spike that's because everybody on the street's buying it and the shorts are shorting and it's a battle, you might not get it all off, but you can do your own change. I wouldn't give control to the market maker. I just wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. I've also bought on Schwab. So if Fidelity doesn't want you to buy it in street name, they can legally use. That's right. Yeah, if the second one is doing it. I don't think Fidelity, I mean, it doesn't show up in the price yet that Fidelity's in panic mode and starting to buy in. But I think quietly, it's like that movie. You can be smarter, you can cheat, or you can be first. And maybe Fidel is just being first, trying to get out and ahead of it. It boils down to exposure, yes, of actual unavailable shares. Yes, that's true. But they also know. Let's see the prices. 190 in finger. Let's see the volume in finger. 614. That's huge. Wow, even Nixie's up. Bastard. 169. G-Bucks is up a little. All right, so Kit Kitteridge wants you to start watching other YouTube. Those are good names. Yankee Stacking, Silver Dragons. Yankee Stacking and Silver Dragons. Silver threads and golden needles. See if there's any news out there. Man, my jaw is killing me. Oh, that's how it starts. I don't want your lonely mansions with a tear in every room. All I want's the love you promised beneath the haloed moon. But you think I should be happy with your money and your name and hide myself in sorrows while you play your cheating game. Silver threads and golden needles cannot mend this heart of mine, and I dare not drown my sorrows in the warm glow of your wine. You can't buy my love with money, 'cause I never was that kind. Silver threads and golden needles cannot mend this heart of mine. Let me see if there's any news out there. I might quit early today because Ham didn't come on and everything is quiet. Let me see what this ESK's question is. Of course. There's always a chance, ESK. That's an interesting article. I wonder if it's a good article. All right, here's an article that interests me. It might not interest you, but it interests me. Capital flow and flight to quality. This is by Martin Armstrong. A recent analysis by Allianz economists claimed that when yields on treasuries rise, the US dollar strengthens as foreign capital pursues those higher yields. However, the dollar weakened as yields rose. They said in this instance, it suggests major holders were not only selling treasuries, but also converting the proceeds into currencies, possibly reallocating to European markets. I don't think that's right. This does not seem to be correct. It looks like an opinion. Can you comment, please? Answer from Martin Armstrong. I think a lot of people fail to appreciate the stark difference between the United States markets and the European ones. The New York Stock Exchange is worth more in total capitalization than all of Europe combined. The United States consumer spending on a bad day is still 25% of global consumer spending. Europe accounts for $1.20 out of every $10 spent. Europe cannot be a reservoir for big capital. It is so socialistic, it is a joke. We, Martin Armstrong, invented capital flow analysis, and we have the actual data. This idea is not original about interest rates and capital flows. This is a typical academic theory they still teach in schools today. In 1927, the first G4 meeting was held. This is where Britain, France, Germany petitioned the New York Fed to lower interest rates in hopes that it would send capital back to Europe. When they did that, it confirmed there was a debt crisis and even more money poured into the United States. The Fed cut rates in the United States to help Europe, and the markets continued to rise as capital flows into the United States intensified. The money was pouring into U.S. equities, and the Dow rose more than double as the Federal Reserve raised rates from 3.5% to 6%. This was in 1927. China has been reducing its holdings of U.S. debt ever since the 2014 Ukrainian war began, and the Biden administration threatened China with sanctions if it helped Russia. This is what I have spoken about. This is what the BRICS is all about. Geopolitical theater, not economics. China saw removing Russia from SWIFT as using the world financial system as a geopolitical tool. The Biden administration was run by the neocons, who do not care about the people or the economy, only their myopic desire to destroy Russia. This is why Fox News or any mainstream news organization never invites me on, because I rain on their parade. This is all about feeding the audience with the narrative they already agree with. This is never about the news. Bloomberg has crossed to the dark side of propaganda. They are more concerned about hating Trump than they are about reporting the facts. They said, quote, the rotation of it by investors out of American assets will go on for years if President Donald Trump persists with his global trade war, unquote. That's Bloomberg. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's what's going on. They also said, quote, the Trump administration has arguably opened the door for the country's financial dominance to be challenged, with the dollar and treasury bonds losing appeal in what may be a dire shift of fortunes for America. U.S. equities also have been underperforming global peers this year amid fear that Trump's strategy of tariff chicken will damage growth and stoke inflation, unquote. That was Bloomberg. This is all based on the Democrats' propaganda. Oh, he quotes a news story from 1932, which says tariff causes depression. An attorney. Anyway, he says this is all based on Democrats' propaganda during the 1932 presidential election. As I have said, no serious economist I have ever heard blamed the Great Depression on tariffs, which did not come in, the tariffs did not come into effect until June 1930. And tariffs were a response to Europeans rising taxes 33 times after World War I. By the way, Japan and China have also been dumping European debt. With Europe pushing for World War III, you have to be insane to buy European debt. European shares hold the risk of capital controls, and you will not get your money out when the first bullet is fired. So people are selling U.S. shares and debt and moving to Europe as a safe haven, question mark? They must be the same people who were still driving alone in their car wearing a mask in order to feel safe. What's my favorite Vegas casino? Taking a trip there. I've only been a couple of times. I went for a woman, but I like. I think if I were to go now, I'd try to go to Binion's or to. I'd go to the Dives. I would want to go to the Dives, or the Bellagio. I'd go to the best or the worst. That's what I would do. But I don't. I can't help you. Wynn. All right, Wynn. That sounds good too. Wynn sounds good too. Then Ellis Island sounds good. All right, it's 219. Let's see where the stock prices are. Nixie is 171. Buy all you can. We're running a special on Nixie at 171. And when the old stock is sold out today, we're going to have a new price on Monday. I don't know. I'm making it up. 171 on Nixie. Finger is up 8.5 cents at 191. G-Bucks is up 4.5 cents at 305. Railtown is flat. PSLV is down 21 cents. All right, I may sign off, but then as soon as I sign off, Ham's going to want to talk to you, so maybe I'll stall it a little bit longer. I just don't want to waste your time. Justin Babish, I think finger, I can't read the rest of it. If Slick Willie signed it into law, then it's corrupt. I know more about Whitewater and all that. Haiti is the biggest corruption in the world. I've spoken about it. Whitewater doesn't excite me as much, but Haiti, I think finger touched $2 in pre-market. It did. I was watching it. I think Haiti's a bigger thief, criminal thing. There's a journalist named Daddy. I think her name is Daddy. I forget her first name, Dady. And she writes about the Clinton corruption, and she's from Haiti. So where'd the money go? It's terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. I think it's Daddy. I think her name is Daddy. Finger 191, Nixie 169, G-Bucks 305. There's no news anymore. It's all gossip. It's all gossip. Oh, my jaw hurts. Your next iPhone could be made in India. See this? Bullish strength coming from stock breadth. Simon White. Stock market breadth has improved quickly in recent days. The standard Zweig thrust looks at the 10-day moving average. And then there's the super Zweig thrust. It's pretty bad. I think I'm scared Fidelity is going to force close us. I'm scared Fidelity is going to force close us. I don't think they'll do that. I guess what you're saying, they'll just give you cash for your entry. All right, that's different. But I don't think they're going to go out and close all the positions just for the hay of it in the open market. That's going to drive the price up. But I guess what you're saying is they'll just say to everyone, we're paying you $2 for your stock. I don't think that's legal. I just don't think they can do it. They don't have a right to do that. So, but it's interesting. It's an interesting worry. Will there be a celebration somewhere? I guess. I gambled at the Hard Rock Casino. Do you think the shorts and G-Bucks will go right through the record date without covering? Yeah. Yeah, they're going to try to. Sure, they're going to try to. But I think the record date, to me, means that, Justin, if you're the guy, according to the news story, putting up $200 million for 30% of the company, and you don't get the deal done by the record date, instead of, I mean, this won't be exactly right, but instead of buying 30% of the company, you're only buying 27%. The arithmetic will be slightly different. You're not going to do that. You're going to make sure that deal closes prior, if you're going to do it at all, prior to the record date. So that's the significance I see. And well, it sounds corrupt, but I guess what I'm asking you is if it's codified in law, you can call the whole system corrupt, you can call the law corrupt, but you're not going to get anywhere, you know? Okay, hop off. I may hop off myself. I'll wait 3 more minutes. Let me see if there's any news anywhere that's worth talking about. Candace Owen turns on Donald Trump. Ugh. Is this news or is that an ad? I think that's an ad. I'm not going to focus on that. All right. All right. Let's just look at the stock prices. And I think I'm going to sign off. PSLV 1108, 1107, Nixie 169, Finger 191. Let's see how much volume is there. 640,000. G-Bucks 305. And that's about it. So I'm going to sign off, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you heard Ham on Twitter earlier. And we'll maybe talk to you over the weekend. Otherwise, I'll see you Monday. Cheers.